So welcome to this Greater Life Coffee Cast on today's day, which is happiness. And this morning, my invitation is to join me on a walk. And in the Health Coffee Casts and in the articles we've shared, I spoke about the importance of what we might call electric health. And of course, one of those elements was the importance of getting our bare feet on the ground, of being actually connected to the earth. And today, as I look out from the jagged granite spires of Cudden Point, which stretches out as a tiny peninsula, I guess, into the sea, like the arcing back of a sleeping dragon. The pointed granite spires, flecked with quartz, catch the early evening sunlight as the sun begins to descend. The sea is a stunning turquoise blue, deep in places and much lighter in others where you can see the sand close to the shore. And Cudden Point, and as I look out across the sea, I can look over towards Piskie's Cove. And Piskie's, of course, is the Cornish name for fairies. And further on over to Perranuthnoe and on to St Michael's Mount. And why do I share these different elements? Because at the same time as for our physical vessel, it is vital to connect into, ground in with the earth. Then for our happiness, for our soul, it is vital too to connect in with what we are coming to know in our community as the forces of nature. And about a decade ago, I wrote a book called Creative Uprising: How to Make a Living and Make a Difference Doing What You Love. And though at the time I was able to be a fit vessel or channel for this book to come into the world, I was nowhere near ready in myself to embody many of its principles. And yet one principle that always stuck with me as important were the words of Alistair McIntosh when I interviewed him for the book. And Alistair McIntosh was the founder of the Centre for Human Ecology and has written a number of amazing books, A Poacher's Pilgrimage and Soil and Soul, The People versus Corporate Power, all about land reclamation and community building. And in the interview for the book, I asked him, what guidance or wisdom he would share for people looking to share their creative gifts with the world. And his response was, in his typical kind of Gaelic Irish, get grounded. Let the forces of nature shape you into a force of nature. And since one of our founder members, Jane, founder of Nettle Revolution, took up that mantra too, it's very much become a guiding philosophy and principle for our community. And if you're listening to this on the outside of the Greater Life community, then do come and join us. It really is a most marvellous place for entrepreneurs over the age of 50 to find a peer group, to find a shared group of like minds, hearts and souls, each committed to living a greater life across what we call the 4 pillars of health, happiness, home and hustle. And today we are really in that zone of happiness. And I am sharing you my evening walk, albeit at 6 a.m. in the morning or whenever you may be listening to this coffee cast. Because for many years, I had no happiness toolkit. I had no ways, consciously, consistently, predictably, of bringing myself back to myself. One of the consequences of a British boarding school education, among other things, is that our capacity to really feel into what we may need to nourish ourselves is shut down. Our hearts are shut down. Our empathy is shut down. And what comes on board in place of that is a number of different personas and masks to make us acceptable to the world we are being shaped to manage. And so in the shedding of those layers, the shedding of those masks and those personas, I have begun to discover and create like my, if you like, soul apothecary, my happiness toolkit, and getting out into the wilds of nature, allowing the force of nature to shape me into a force of nature, is very much one of my greatest joys and sources of great joy. And I don't know where you are at and whether nature is a thing that could be of service. But what I do know is that if you are listening to this in accompaniment with the daily email on happiness, then you'll see my article on flow states. And flow states are those states where we're characterized as being in the zone, in the moment. And the Hungarian-American researcher, psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who really godfathered a lot of the research into flow states, described flow states as the optimal state of human experience. And I like to think that perhaps that goes beyond even happiness. That perhaps flow states are a level above even happiness, that they are a state where we almost have no words to describe their majesty and their impact on us, yet we know them, yet we know it. And so I share this piece around flow states and invite you to check out the article that goes with this Coffeecast, because, of course, as you'll see in the article, a rich environment, aka being in nature, right, is one of the predictable flow triggers. And so I have just been standing barefoot on the rocks of Cudden Point, and I'm sharing with you, as the video accompaniment to this, some of the images from that walk. And there was a moment that I wasn't able to capture because it was one of those moments of pure flow and bliss where the sun broke through a cloud and was reflected on the shimmering sea and like lit up the entire land and sea as one. And I was able to stand and be bathed in this incredible like radiance. And it's very hard not to feel a sense of oneness with all things and a greater sense of purpose in life and a greater connection to oneself and one's gifts when sharing a moment like that in nature with one's bare feet on the ground. And so my invitation today is, where might you be able to carve out some moments of flow? What creative projects maybe could you wrestle with? Because indeed, challenge is one of the indicators of what may bring us into a flow state, that sense, that experience of deep absorption in a task. Be it painting, be it perhaps martial arts. For me today, clambering over the rocks bare feet and trying to ensure that I didn't fall to my death. And so where could you bring in some small risks? Where could you bring in some small struggles? And where could you bring in things that bring you joy? And in that trinity there, between risk and struggle and joy, there perhaps you may find the magic of some flow states. And therefore in your day-to-day, go beyond even happiness to the optimal state of human experience. All right, I'll see you tomorrow.